Starting video. Here we go, we're live.
Okay.
That's it, right. Right, we're live. Oh, hi. Hello, right. I'm Jon Wedger. This is one of a few videos that I've been putting out, really sort of highlighting the plight of whistleblowers, but it extends to anyone sort of helping to expose sort of wrongdoings within the system, mainly regarding the emphasis of abuse on children. However, children grow up into adults, and they grow up in adults, and inevitably, unless their problems are addressed, they fall foul of the system. And then if they have children, then the cycle repeats, and no one breaks the cycle. So I'm here in beautiful Oxfordshire at the lay community with someone I class as a good friend now, and that's Mr. Chris Lambrianou. And I'll let Chris introduce himself in a minute, but what this interview is going to be about is what has brought Chris to this table and myself to this table. Okay, we've come from two different sides of the fence, as it were. Myself, an ex-Scotland Yard detective who was bullied and threatened with imprisonment and all sorts of horrors for exposing child abuse. And Chris came to notoriety many years ago for his role in criminality, and since then has turned his life into a different direction, and like myself wants to put things right. So Chris, can I just ask you, how comes you've ended up here with me?
It's been a long journey, John.
Yeah.
I found myself in the dock on one of the longest murder trials in criminal history, which was the Kray brothers, and I was sentenced to life with a recommendation of 15 years. I never murdered anybody. I had no intention of murdering anybody. I saw violence as something that had to be personal before I'd use violence. I wouldn't use it willy-nilly.
Right.
So I went down for something I thought I hadn't done. It was an unjust sentence. I went out for a night. These two brothers, they were both dealing with tremendous, how can I put it, deviance in their life. I.e., one was on very high medication for schizophrenia, and the other one had just lost his wife, committed suicide, and he was dealing with that as well. And it was quite, and drink came into it, and drugs, not cannabis but speed. And I got invited to a party, went along there, a fight started and a man died.
Yeah.
But before that, I protested that, you know.
How old was you, Chris, at the time?
At the time, I was 28.
28. Yeah.
And I left the party, went home, but my brother Tony was still there. So I went back and knocked on the door and said, "Is Tony there?" And one of the chaps came up to the door, and he said, "Tony's not here." And I went to turn away, and he said, "Don't leave me." And I said, "Why?" He said, "They've killed him." I said, "Not in front of all them people. It just wouldn't happen." He said, "Chris, they've killed him. He's dead. He's downstairs now." I said, "Where are the twins?" He said, "They've run away." I said, "And left you here on your own?" He said, "Yeah." And the guy was a man called Ronnie Bender, ex-serviceman, soldier, regular soldier, an all-round good man, decent bloke, not a criminal or anything else like that. They gave him a job as a driver. They like military people, and he innocently took it. That's the only thing I can say, because I spent a lot of years with this man. I saw the kind of man he was. He would rather do a person a good turn than a bad turn, and I could not see him being involved in the murder. And I don't think the people there that night, many people got sent away and I think it was political, to be honest with you, that they wanted the Krays, and anybody who wouldn't help them, they would go down with the Krays, and that's what happened.
I think we see that a lot when you become an embarrassment to the country, or you're exposing something the country don't want out. They hit you, and they hit you hard.
Yeah. And that was the case. I mean, nobody but the longest murder trial in criminal history, and everybody who gave evidence against us had been a former member of their firm. I wasn't a member of their firm.
In total, how many years were dished out on that day as a collective?
On that day, there were 2 30s, which is 60, 2 20s, which is 40, that's 100 years. Me and Tony, 15 each. Freddie Foreman, 10. So we are looking at near enough 200 years.
For one murder?
For one murder, yeah.
If you could go back to that day and speak to that 28-year-old Chris,
yeah,
what would you say to him?
Well, Chris was always somebody who had intuition, and if he thought there was something not sensible about something, he wouldn't be entertain it. But it seemed an innocent thing. It seemed an innocent. He knew the girl whose house it was, that she wouldn't allow it to happen. And the strange thing, there were 2 children in the house that night.
Yeah.
You know, to all intents and purposes, the people looking after them 2 children were the Krays. So, you understand what I'm saying? It totally out, you know, off the board. And so I got this 15 years, and I began to read.
How did that affect you when you got dished out 15 years inside?
Well, you've got to take it. You take it on the chin. You can't run away. There was nowhere to run to.
Did you have any understanding what lay in front of you?
No, I didn't. All I knew, there was a great deal of time, but I was put with, or we were put with some of the people who were the top people in the underworld,
right,
like the train robbers, the Richardsons, bank robbers, Paul Seaborn, who got Bigsy out over the wall,
right,
and all these people. But let me tell you, they were a decent set of blokes who had values. They did what they did, but they had a reason to do it. I could understand that. They wanted to climb out of poverty. They wanted a good life for their families and things like that. And one man alone, Charlie Richardson, he had to take it all on his head. He weren't even in the country when this happened. I know because I went to work for a long firm that allegedly he was the head of, but he wasn't. Other people were taking the name and using it,
right,
and setting up companies and things like that. So he took a very big hit on that one, but so did other people as well. So, you know, there was just, say, 8 of us in a wing, in Durham E-Wing. Bruce Reynolds.
So they've sent you, you're a London boy,
yeah,
they've sent you
all the way up to
probably
Durham,
as far up north as you can get.
As they can.
Right.
And the Chief Constable of Durham said these people are so dangerous that I would not be surprised if they had a chieftain tank come through the wall and the fence.
Would you have considered yourself as dangerous?
No, I didn't. No. And I don't think any of the other. They were family men. They had children. You understand what I mean? They would not have been. The only way we could have been a danger was if we tried to get out and somebody tried to stop us.
It's strange because we had a chat earlier and we were talking about the lay community that you do a lot of work for and I've raised some money for, and what we was discussing was the success rate. There's people here that come here harbouring alcohol and drug addictions. A lot of them come...
But John, I agree with you entirely on this, but let's get to the place where how I came.
How you changed, that's what I was just going to...
So
yeah,
what
right.
basically happened, I go through the prison system. I read, I learn, I inwardly digest. I read philosophy. I read religion. I read the great authors of their day. I read poetry that takes you anywhere in the world. And it was Charlie Richardson who said to me, if you can throw your head over the wall, your body will follow. And it was right. I went on great adventures He'd give me a book on Shaka the Zulu and different people like that, and what was happening over in South Africa, which he had a great passion for. He taught me all about minerals and stuff like that. I find books and all. He was a family man who wanted to educate people.
He's obviously an intelligent man.
A very highly intelligent man who should have actually been a teacher, a professor, but other things. So I came through prison and made some good friends, but I found something in prison which kind of, it just brought me through. It was faith. I found a faith. I believed in Jesus. He suffered as I'd suffered. He understood human nature. He could forgive some of the worst things that can happen to another human being because it had happened to him. He was like the forerunner of punishment he didn't deserve, and yet could say, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And I look at that and think, well, yeah, forgiveness is part of it, but it's learning to forgive yourself for allowing yourself to do the things you do.
How did that come about, though? Was that over a period of time, or?
Came out one day. I was in my cell in Gartree Prison. I had a good friend called Stuart Brown, Scotch boy, and he used to come and talk to me. And I remember him saying to me one day, he said, I was trying to talk to this guy, saying, look, don't lose it, keep your head and everything else. And the guy wouldn't have it at all. He wanted to go and hurt somebody. And Stuart said to me, Chris, he said, you can't teach a pig to play the violin. It won't like you, it won't thank you, and he'll probably want to attack you. and so, you know, philosophy in that light.
It's profound in a crude way, isn't it?
In a crude way.
Yeah.
So he's going home, and he comes to me. He says, "Chris, I'm going out." He said, "and you've been a good friend to me while I'm here. I'd like to give you these books." And he gave me a box of books, and I shoved them under the bed. This day, I'd had a kind of a toughish day, and it felt like I was neither here nor there. I was 7 years into a sentence. I never knew when I was getting out. And looking back for 7 years, there was nothing. I'd given up everything, my wife, my child.
That's what I was going to say. What about the feelings of what you've left behind?
Remorse and pain and distress about what I'd done in my own life and what I'd done to my daughter, this little girl who'd not long been born. I wanted to be a dad. It was a desire to be a father. And yet I wasn't allowed to be. And so the depression set in, anger against myself and everything else, and the blood began to run boiling hot in my veins one moment and cold as ice the next. And a voice said to me, kill yourself, you're never going to get out. Beat the system. They can't, you've won. If you take your own life, you have won. They can't damage you. They can't hurt you anymore.
Did it make sense, that voice to you?
It did make sense. But then another voice said, what about your father who's travelled all these years, over many thousands of miles to see you? How about the person who's shown you love and compassion and kindness? Is that what you're going to do? Haven't you hurt him enough? Now you're going to present him with your dead body.
Yeah. It's a destructive way to go.
I thought, you've got to get out of this. You can't keep thinking about this. Get out of it. So I looked underneath the bed for these books, and I went through them all, came across a Bible and threw it on the floor, because the only time I'd ever got a Bible, which I used to rip a page out to roll a fag.
Fag, yeah. They're thin, aren't they?
And I looked and I thought, no. And I went through some other books, it didn't do nothing. And I picked the Bible up again and I thought, the people I've read about who've made their life, they've stood on this book, literally stood their life on it. Why can't you do that? Why can't you believe like they believe? Why? Because your mother died early? And what kind of God would take your mother from you? Your father's got to do, you find yourself doing 15 years in prison. But Chris, you weren't the best of people. You did some pretty bad things out there. And maybe this is retribution. This is the way of paying paying back the price you know for what you've done wrong. Is 15 years long enough? No, I think the 10 would have been ample. The 15 years. Anyway, I started reading. I thought, well, just open up the first page. It's like going through a doorway, and I opened up the first page, and I read the second page, and I thought, people have just believed. They have not even read that. I can't read this book in a night, but I can hold it. And I remember putting it, you know, under my head, and I kept on tossing and turning, but the killing part had gone. That one part of it.
Well, the suicidal issues.
It was, yeah, that had vanished. But what had come in its place was wanting to get a desire to get close to whatever saved other people and made them strong. So I put it under my head, and it didn't do nothing. And I put it down here, next to my heart, and I lay there and I fell asleep. And I woke up in the morning and I thought, that book got me through last night, and I'm never going to go anywhere without it. And I put it down the front of my trousers. So
the reason being?
Somebody could say to me, what you got the book down your trousers for? Just in case anybody comes at me with a knife.
Yeah, right.
It's got to go through.
Was you ashamed to admit that you'd sort of seen God?
Yeah, I was ashamed. Yeah, I was. Right. Yeah, it just wasn't
what you do.
What you do. And then I kind of began to really take in the Bible. And every night I'd lay a towel down, and I'd put the book on it. I'd read it, and I'd pray with my head on the book. And I thank him for that day, for being with me, encouraging me, being kindly to me, and allowing me to see the sky. And then I began to look at other things. And during the course of this, my father died. And I remember reading about Abraham taking Isaac up the mountain.
And killed him.
Making an altar.
Yeah.
Presenting an altar. And God said, lay him on the altar. And I'll take him. And he took a knife out to kill his own son, because he felt that was God wanted. And God said, don't do that. No. There's a sheep over there.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Offer that up. And so when my dad died, that's exactly what I did. I couldn't stand the grief or the pain. I took him up that mountain, like Abraham did, and I laid him out on an altar and said, this is far too painful for me to deal with. Please deal with it for me. Help me to come through it. Make me somebody worth his love. And so I came out of prison, and I'm skipping loads of bits and pieces, and I came out of prison and I went to work at a quarry, and that was called Lazarus Bottom's Tip.
I see.
And the way I got the job,
the whispers are everywhere, aren't they?
I had children. I had twins. I just had twins. Ironically, I went to prison for twins, and then I have twins. There's a little boy and a girl, and I went in the job centre, and there's this job there, and I thought, well, I ain't got a chance. Quarry manager wanted, and I went for it. And I got it. So it was great. But then the guy said, well, I'm closing it down, it's not that busy, I'll open it up at weekends. I said, no, you're not. I said, I got this job out of the job centre, it's presented me as a proper job, and I ain't going anywhere. So he went and got some of these farmer boys, come up with pickup trucks with lights on.
Oh, right.
And they said, we heard you've been giving Yogi a bit of stick. That's called him Yogi, the guy. I said, no, I'm not giving him any stick, but he ain't laying me off. I said, I've got children to feed, I've got a home to pay for, and no way is it, am I leaving? And they looked, and they said, you didn't tell us this. And they got in their trucks and left. And the man who then came to see me was the farmer. And he came and said, Ken his name was, a London evacuee settled up in Curlington, and he said to me, Chris, he said, what Yogi did was out of order. Would you like to take it? No. He said, I'm going to try and see if I can keep it on. And then the owner came down, was a man called James Budgett. His father had trained 2 Derby winners on this land, because apparently there's something in the soil that makes, they train polo ponies up there and everything like that. And he came to me, he said, look, he said, do you want to take it on? Do you want the quarry yourself? I said, I'm being honest with you. I said, no, I don't. But I know somebody who does, a man called David Beecroft. And David Beecroft was a civil engineer. And he came, he said, but I've heard bad stories about him. I said, don't judge people on other people's stories. Meet him. I said, I can only say he's brought the stuff they're building, the M40. He brings it all in here. He treats me with respect and he pays his bills. That's all I'm interested in. And he said, well, I'll meet him. And they shook hands and he took it on. So I'm working at the quarry, and I'm working there until it's full up for about 2 years.
So you've turned it round, basically?
Pardon?
Turned it round?
Turned it round, yeah. Anyway, I was happy with them and they were happy with me. And then what happened was, Mike Howard, my probation officer, he said to me, Chris, he said, you're wasted. You've got so much ability. You've learned so many things over the years in prison. You're so well educated on having your education in prison. What I'd like to do, he said, is find you somewhere where you can work with people. So he took me to homeless shelters and things like that. They didn't really want me, you understand what I mean? An ex-gangster and all the rest of it.
Soup kitchen.
Yeah, that's right, soup kitchen. I'd have done it, you understand what I mean? Yeah, the Lord says you've got to wash a friend's feet.
Yeah.
So I'm here doing a bit of cooking and stuff like I'd done that. But no, they weren't there. It took me several places. And then he said, I've just got to pop into a place called the Lay Community, where I'm the probation officer. He said, come with me. And I went in there with him. I came here. The offices were around the corner then. And I thought it was amazing, because when you come up that drive, it strikes you, you know, this house, everything else. I said, what is it? He said, a long-term rehabilitation centre. Heroin, crack, drink, everything. Anyway, the director wanted to meet me. And he said, your name's Chris? I said, yeah. He said, how you doing, Paul? He said, you're looking for some work? I said, yeah, I am. How do you fancy being a volunteer? I'll give anything a try. So he said, okay. He said, come in. We've got a guy going to court next Wednesday. Are you prepared to take him down there? So I said, yeah, and I took him down by train. But it was a lot of hassle. It was like getting a train, getting to Oxford, getting to London, then getting from London over to the London Crown Court.
I was in London, right, yeah.
And I said, it doesn't work. The only way it's ever going to work is to have a vehicle that I can drive down there. We can go to the court and I can have them back in the community within, say, 2 hours of them coming out of the court. And he said, yeah, he said, I'll do that. So then I began to really feel at home. I began to feel this was where I belonged. They didn't sit in judgment on me. I didn't sit in judgment on them. They wanted to be with me and I wanted to be with them. Many of these kids came from the kind of background I come from, the East End and all that kind of thing. They weren't rich kids, they were poor kids.
What was the feeling going back to court but on the other side?
Going back to the Old Bailey. I said, look, I've got to go to the Old Bailey anyway. Parking there was incredible. It cost an absolute bloody fortune. Anyway, I park up, but I've got to be out in the car. Anyway, I'm in the Old Bailey, and I spoke to the probation officer there, and they said, look, we've got parking spaces in the Old Bailey itself, right where I walked out and got in the van to take me to prison for 15 bloody years. So anyway, I'm there, and I've got my own parking space. So, and they think the world of me. So I go up in front of the judge, and I've got this guy there, and he's in for selling drugs. They found a gun and all the rest of it. So, but the gun was a
replica.
Yeah, replica. Anyway, I get up in the dock and take the oath, and I said, he's been at the Lake Community now for 2 months. He's shown an ability to actually communicate with people and get along. It seems we can work with him and he can work with us. You can send him to prison and all you're doing is putting him back into the arms of the other dealers and learning more about crime than he probably knew already. So I said, it's not really going to work, but we can turn him round. We're in Oxfordshire, we're in the country, we've got people, dedicated members of staff, we've got people that really care, they've come through the programme themselves and want the best for every resident that comes through. And I implore you to give him a chance. And the judge said, Mr. Lambrianou, thank you very much for coming today and speaking on the defendant's account. We've now got to go away and discuss the case. And,
deliberate it.
And yeah, and we'll come back. Anyway, I wait about half an hour. The judge comes back. He said, we have deliberated and we are thinking along the lines that we should allow him to go to the Lake Community. This is a one-off chance. We feel quite safe that if he doesn't commit there, we'll know about that and he'll come back before the court and the sentence will be quite severe. He said, we wish you very well and we wish the defendant well. Thank you very much. And the court was allowed to rise. I got him back to the Lake Community, and
well, they didn't expect to see him here, did they?
No, they never expect to see him here.
Yeah.
But and the judge didn't even know I was. But I knew I'd sat in that dock in that court. I also knew that I'd gone down them steps and got into a van and gone and spent 15 years in prison.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable feeling. But when you get one out, then other people begin to trust you that you're going to go up and say the same thing for them as you did for that bloke.
For the right reasons, isn't it?
For all the right reasons.
Yeah.
You're not lying,
No.
You're telling the truth, and it's a lovely feeling to go in, because when you're telling the truth, that's power.
And you can feel it as well.
Then they feel it as well. And you become quite moved with it as well, because you want to see that person, be it a man, woman, or a girl. We've had a lot of young girls here, and they're decent kids, you know what I mean? They've let their parents down, they've let everybody down. I mean, one girl up there one day, I came into work, Lisa, she'd cut herself quite badly, and they said, we can't help you. And so an ambulance came, took her to Jon Wedger. I went from here to the Jon Wedger, and I said, what are you going to do now? All she'd ever known was, only a young kid, she'd prostituted herself and everything. And I took her to the Jesus Army on the Woodstock Road, just down the road. And I went in, I said, look, the pastor, I said, look, you've got to help her. She's got nowhere to go. She'll go back to prostitution and drugs.
Yeah.
There's nothing else she knows. Anyway, he said, Chris, let her speak for herself. He said, you're trying to sell her to me.
Yeah, in the wrong term, or the right term.
In the right term.
Yeah.
He said, let her speak. And he did. And she told him everything, and he said, yes, you can stay here. And she got involved in the church and got involved in, it's called the Jesus Army.
Yeah.
And really did tremendously well. But they allowed her to go home to Peterborough, and she came back with drugs.
Wrong choice.
Wrong choice. Anyway, they said, we can't have her in the community, with taking drugs and things. So what we'll do, we'll find her a place to live, we'll find her work, we'll still support her, but not in the house. We're supporting the community. And they did, and then I never saw her for a while, and I came out of church and all that one day, and she was outside, and she had a little dog with her. I said, "Hello Lisa, how are you?" She went, "I'm good," she said. "I've got my own place, I've got a boyfriend, I've got my lovely little dog." She said, "Life couldn't be better." Thank you, God. Praise you for that. Anyway, about 9 months later, I pick up the paper, and this girl and this young chap went to this Asian shop, lit a what's the name, a newspaper, pushed it through the door. Burnt him out.
God.
And then she got sent to Broadmoor, and she committed suicide.
Old demons came back.
Yeah, old demons came back. So you can save somebody, but then you also lose them. But this place, I walk around here, I see ghosts, and if I've been troubled at any time, I'll come and sit on the veranda around the back there, and I'll look and I'll think about the people who've died and the people who've lived, because it is a life and death.
I bet there's a lot of pain's been through here as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is but I've been part of that pain. It cost me my marriage, because my wife said to me, "You would have more time for me if I had a needle hanging out of my arm." And I thought, well, you don't really need me. You've got a nanny, you've got a lovely house, you've got everything you could
I've had similar things said to me. If I was in trouble, you'd pay me attention. Yeah. Because I'm not, you don't want to know.
But the thing was, John, every time I walked to come home, there'd be somebody say, "Chris, come have a word."
Yeah, and what can you do?
It might have been the reason I kept him here, because I stopped and talked to him. You understand what I'm saying? There were times I needed people to talk to. When I was in prison, there was nobody. There was only God. Yeah. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you understand my relationship with God and Jesus. They were the only people I could talk to. Really talk to. About everything, every aspect of my life. The wrong I'd done, the good I'd done, my family, my children, everything. And there were things I couldn't forgive myself for, but I could live with. I just couldn't accept forgiveness, because I'd let so many people down. And that.
Well, out of pain comes compassion, so they say.
Out of pain comes understanding.
Yeah.
And knowledge, you understand? And that all came, and that is why I'm sitting here today.
And like we discussed, the success rate here is 80%.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, you don't work here for the money.
No.
You understand? You wake. It's a dedication. It's a devotion. It's being part of. It's understanding. It's knowing the pain and the grief, like you suggested, John, that's here, and it's being part of the healing process. So you come here and you look at something like prison. I saw somebody from the Howard League of Penal Reform on television last night, and she was saying about prison, and we've got to do more for people in prison and all that kind of thing. What you've got to have is a system that works. I've never seen a system that works like the late community.
Well, the results speak for itself.
Yeah.
And when you take the prison system, recidivism rates are 75 to 80%.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Most people go in there, if they're not on drugs, I assure you, when they come out, they will be. Not only that, I will also say that they come out and they go straight back into the arms of the people that have got them into trouble because they're waiting for them.
Yeah.
But what does the lead do? You're here in the wonderful Oxford countryside. You've got peace around you. When you've finished your process here, you then do voluntary work. And they do voluntary work when they leave prison? No, they give them 40 quid and say, on your way, go survive.
Well, the other thing, from what you said, part of your change was a spiritual change.
But it was also part that I came to the League.
Yeah.
I've been out 32 years. I've never been back in prison once. No. I've never stood in the dock on a criminal offence, but I've stood in the dock 1,000 times asking for somebody
Someone
to
else,
be
yeah,
given a chance. Now, come on. That is something to be proud of, isn't it?
Of course it is.
And in there, I feel it. In there, I feel I'm blessed. For every time I walked away from a prison or from a court with a resident, I felt I was blessed to be in that position.
But Chris, even when years ago a guy said to me he used to be a rent boy many years ago, heroin addict, terrible story, and he come to me and said, I want to help you catch paedophiles. And he turned around to me and he mentioned the lay community. This is about 2001, and he went, if you ever get a chance, talk to a bloke called Chris Lambrianou.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my sergeant. I said, look, there's a guy called Chris Lambrianou. Any problems with me? He went, no, you can't go talking to him. He used to be a gangster. You're not having that. No. And it was only years later, and when you see testimonies of various, I don't know, gangsters, whatever in there, you listen to them. And I listened to you, and like you said, your truth resonated.
Yeah.
And all you spoke about was change, reform, and doing good things.
Yeah.
And that is why when I got in touch with Darren, I was saying that, this is the second time I revisited trying to get hold of Chris.
Yeah.
It's because I like what he's saying. I can feel the truth in what he's saying, and I think I can help, in my own way. And this is what brings us together. I think the fact that we all want the same thing. We want this to stop and we want to help.
Yeah. I mean, if you remember, we met over in the garden centre.
That's right, yeah, over the road.
And I said to you, come on, I'm taking you somewhere.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it changed your life.
Oh, it did. It did.
As much as it changed mine.
Yeah. And I've seen how you spoke to the residents here. I was going to say inmates here, it was the wrong term, but the residents here. And I see how you give them time, you put your arm around them.
Yeah,
simple human touch.
Yeah, that's really what it's about. I mean, you see residents, they come up, Darren, today, come and give me a hug, you understand? That's part of the philosophy of the League. Don't be afraid to hug a human being. They may need it. It may be that your strength going into them.
But also you're inspirational.
It's not about being anything. It's about just being you. You understand what I mean? Just being normal. Just being here. I ain't got forever. I used to think I had, but now I'm not so sure. But to be honest with you, this has been part of my journey. My kids came here when I worked as little toddlers. I weren't frightened of anybody interfering with them here. It wouldn't happen.
No, you just know it's not going to happen,
I'd bring 5 children here, and these people, who are alleged to be the worst kind of people in the world, would play with them. I could see them. They'd be swinging them around and doing all that kind of thing. Never once was there anything untoward happened. My kids never ever said nothing, because it just wouldn't happen.
I interviewed a prison officer about a month ago, and they're trying to change all their contracts, put them on so they got work till they're 68. They're taking all their money away. She said there's no education in prisons. They're taking the gymnasiums away. They're reducing staff, so it's really basically a bit like South American prisons. The prisoners are just doing it themselves.
We had an education system around the corner. We've lost that. We had classes here. We've lost them. You understand? Bit by bit, we should be building places like this. Where people learn to be free again, to release the chains of drug addiction, of pain and distress, because it's not only just the individual here that is in great pain and distress. You want to see what the families go through.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine if one of my kids ended up in drugs,
I've had mothers and fathers crying on my shoulder.
Yeah, save my son or daughter.
I've had a grandparent, and she said she stole my wedding ring to pawn or sell to get drugs. And you walk with these people, and you feel their pain. But not only that, I feel that God's here. Come on, have a look at it.
Yeah, no, it's very tranquil, isn't it?
This used to be Dr. Livingstone's home. Dr. Livingstone would never want it to be anything other than it is.
Yeah.
that it's helping people. Dr. Livingston, I presume. Yeah, I know what you are, Mr. Livingston. I know that you want this place to be used and to be cared about and extended and everything else. You don't want it shut down. You don't want it to sort of like shut the door on needy people.
Well, this is what society's doing.
But John, you went out of your own back, you rode a bike down to Penzance, swam
And
round
doing
the
that again.
island and everything
Yeah.
else to raise a couple of £1,000
Yeah.
to put in the coffers here,
Yeah.
so they could do something for the residents.
Exactly.
But why? Because you do it.
Yeah.
You understand what
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying?
that's right.
There was a time you'd be arresting most of these kids.
Yeah.
Now you're going out and
Of
giving
course.
them money.
Yeah, exactly that. And,
Come on, you ain't turned your life around, have you?
Well, and not only that, when I was here last time, there was a girl there and we got talking, and I said, I must have dealt with you, because she was telling about where she used to operate in the West End. I went, that's exactly, and I'm sure our paths are crossed, you know.
And that's just the way it works. God works in mysterious ways. You understand?
And he leaves his foot soldiers on the floor.
He has his foot soldiers on the floor. And I tell John, listen, that that's in you is greater than that's in the world, the Holy Spirit. You can't crush the Holy Spirit. If you're doing right, if you're focused and you're going in a direction, he will pick you up and carry you. It's called footsteps. Where were you when I needed you?
Yeah, of course, yeah. We know the parable, yeah. Yeah. And what I need to say is that the lake is suffering financial catastrophe, really, and it needs help and it needs funding. So if there are people out there that really wish to contribute to a worthy cause, and a cause that works, is proven track record of work, and not just this, if this is allowed to continue, then others shall be springing up. But it starts with people giving. So if there is someone out there that has got that bit of cash that they need to put forward.
John, if you have a look what it costs to actually keep a man in prison, to put a man in the lay community, it costs about half of that.
Of course. And that's without legal fees.
And that's right. You ain't got legal fees, you've got nothing else like that. What you've got is somebody, and there's more people. I mean, the time to catch a man is at the beginning of a sentence. He doesn't know whether he's coming or going. He could be going, he could not be going. But to say, come here for 6 months, 12 months, because they've cut the programme back to 3 months. This programme really worked when it was 12 months. 12 months on these grounds. Because they went through all the different stages. They began to open up what took them onto drugs in the first place. Dealing with all the pain of the people they've hurt, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters.
And
there's just a ocean of people out there that people in it have hurt.
And you've got people that are victims themselves, that have been through the care system, and politically, you know, you get certain governments that really do want to penalise those inside and think that doing time should be doing time and punishment. But when we look at 75%, again, we keep getting this reoccurring number of people in prison have come from the care system. You know, these are little kids that have had their lives demonstrably damaged, and really, we're just throwing them to the wolves, and that's where it's wrong. So we're just failing at every level, you know, and the money that they throw into the family courts, into the juvenile courts, the magistrates, the Crown courts, and then ultimately the coroner's courts, you know, and all the solicitors that are making money. I'm not knocking them, but it seems perverse that we're not addressing the problem.
I mean, you imagine the amount of money that you need, you know, to run a prison. I mean, they're carrying far too many people that were never meant to carry 3 to a cell. Come, where's the dignity in 3 to a cell?
Yeah.
The dignity is a man needs a room. He's a man. You can't put him in with 2 other men. It's just not.
Well, Pentonville Prison, when it was built, was the first sort of penal establishment, and it was really for 1 person per cell.
Per cell, yeah. You know, but the thing is, no, we'll spend all this money bringing more and more prisoners. We need more and more prison officers. Well, look what's going on in prisons today. There's violence against each other and against the staff. People are terrified of walking down along the landings. There's drugs in there. They've got drones flying them in and everything else. You've got a world within a world. You understand what I'm saying? It's just not It's not on, really.
And it was quite funny because I think it might have been in Oxford. They interviewed prisoners and they actually came out in defence of the prison officers saying we feel sorry for them. They've got to deal with this nonsense that we're creating.
You hear about bad prison officers. I met some very good ones during my time. Decent human beings, family men. All they wanted to do was a job and get a home, you know, have a family. That's what they wanted. But a lot of them were ex-service soldiers. So they knew what it was to do time.
Yeah.
They had understanding and all the rest of it. You got people in there today, they're not qualified.
No.
They've not had a hard life like some of the people in prison are. It's just not. It doesn't work. It never will work. You understand?
Well, I don't think they want it to work. I just think they want to privatise it and make money. And
a lot of people would be unemployed.
Yeah, of course.
If kind of people rehabilitated. But what is rehabilitation? Tell me what your vision of rehabilitation is.
Well, I mean, you've got to change inside first.
Yeah.
You've got to want to change. It's a bit like a drinker. The drinker has to want to stop drinking.
Yeah.
And then go forward to live a functioning life, you know, and be of benefit to society, those around you and your family.
But let me tell you this, John. It isn't about an individual kind of me wanting that individual to be here. That won't work. That individual has got to come to a place where he really wants to change. Means it with all his heart or her heart. Please just give me that one chance and I'll take it with both hands. And there are people come up that drive and that's their philosophy. I've got to change.
And deal with the issue.
Yeah, I've got family, I've got young children. A lot of these people come through here, their parents. You understand what kind of an example is that to their children? Where's Daddy, Mum? Oh, he'll be out shortly, or he'll do this, that and the other. No. And I thought in prison about life and about this day. I just didn't want to be anywhere. I just wanted to go to my cell and I wanted to think. And I thought, who could cry a tear which would encompass all the pain and distress and all the tears that are cried in a prison? And then I thought, let's go beyond that. What about the parents? What about the brothers, the sisters, the children, the grandparents? And it was like a wave that went out, a massive wave went out with all. It just wasn't that one guy in prison. That's all the judiciary see. Do you understand?
Yeah, and of course, and also the victims of your wrongdoings
right.
and everything.
They
You
only see
know?
the one person.
Yeah.
They don't know about the bigger picture. The good people that are kind of don't want to see a member of their family die inside, and they're trying to stand with them. Then they can't, because you can't get over that wall. Here you can walk up the drive. You can talk to somebody here, and you'll speak to a human being.
Yeah.
That's why this works. You can't even talk to a vicar in prison. A lot of them, they've got no answers. Here they've got answers. You understand? So where's Jesus? Is he in prison? He is. I stand at the door and knock. But I'm not only knocking on prisoners' doors, I'm knocking on your door as well. Come and see the light. Come and see some sense. Come on, let's give it a chance, because this isn't working.
Yeah.
This does work.
Yeah, it does, and it's in His name that we do all this.
Yeah,
you know,
we do. Yeah.
because we are fighting evil.
That's right.
We are fighting
It
evil,
is evil in
and those that hurt the children, they're committing acts of
Yeah.
evil, and we can only do this with righteous hearts and doing it the right way. And let's hope that carries on. So, but just to round that up, this is what was presented earlier. I don't know if we can get that in there, Tracy. Let's see. This is right.
You've got to put your thumbs.
Yeah, thumbs up to heaven. This is the second one that's been delivered. There's another check like this is going to another centre in the north of England for kids. And let's hope there's someone out there that can stick a few more noughts on this and help out, because it goes a long, long way.
But I'll tell you, I'd like to see some politicians looking at this.
Yeah.
Because this man, you know, he ain't putting people away anymore. He's helping people.
Well, I
And
stand.
those who sit in judgment and say he shouldn't be doing this and shouldn't
Yeah.
be doing that, I'm saying thank God he is doing it,
Yeah.
because there's too few people doing it.
Well, it just shows we're doing the right things when we get the attack that we've had, and it's been disgusting, to be honest. It's been vile, but you know what? It'll drop away. The parasites will drop away. You know, we're doing the right thing, and let's continue. Well, let's hope there's more of this, Chris, eh? And God bless everyone. God bless. All right, over and out.
Thank
Right,
you. God
Trace.
bless.